The terms Scope 1, Scope 2 and Scope 3 are used in greenhouse gas reporting. What do they mean?
The term scopes originates from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which is an organisation launched in 1998 to develop greenhouse gas accounting and reporting standards. These standards are widely used and accepted internationally. Scope 1 emissions are direct emissions from facilities and assets owned by the organisation. For example, emissions from gas boilers used for heating or from vehicles owned by the organisation. Scope 2 emissions are indirect emissions. In other words, the emissions occur elsewhere. The main example is electricity drawn from the grid and used by the organisation. The emissions take place at a power station which could be many miles away. Scope 3 emissions are a mixed bag of emissions from various sources. The main one is business travel. Others include emissions from waste to landfill and emissions from third-party transport used by the organisation, say to deliver finished goods.
Which emissions do companies report?
There are various reporting schemes that organisations comply with. Mandatory carbon reporting requires them to report their Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions in their annual report. The UK government also encourages companies to report their Scope 3 emissions, including business travel.
Will Scope 3 emissions become mandatory?
In 2016, the government announced that for carbon emissions reporting, it would create a single reporting framework designed through the prism of the Energy Savings Opportunity Scheme, which is more popularly known as ESOS. The final details have not been announced yet, but there are two important points. Firstly, ESOS applies to all companies with 250 employees or more. And secondly, that ESOS requires companies to report on all business mileage driven in company vehicles and on business mileage driven in private cars and claimed through the expenses system. So, when this framework comes into force, which is likely to be in 2019, companies will need to record Scope 3 business mileage in a format which allows them to report the resultant carbon emissions.